Hey, so I have a theory that's not really a theory, but we're gonna call it a theory. It could be like an interpretation or philosophy. Either way, this theory is gonna start with the question that nobody really asks, but I believe is actually really important, which is, what is the purpose of abuse? What would I know this is a heavy topic and this is a heavy question, but I couldn't help but kind of ponder on this question, well, rather the answer before the question. And I'm going to give you a my own interpretation of to answer this question. I believe that the purpose of abuse is to create lack. And we're not going to get into the fact that, people project what they are lacking onto somebody else. I'm giving you the relational dynamic between abuse and lack because there is a relationship to be established. So the purpose of abuse from like just pure conscious standpoint minus awareness would be for the purpose of creating lack in someone else. The idea can be related to the colonial era where we could say that European people created lack mentality on people who were already sovereign. So they were free spirited. They didn't need any ownership or rulership. They had their own systems in place that didn't require standardization or institutionalization. So these people created abuse or lack. They used abuse to create lack in these free spirited individuals, sovereign individuals, so that they can establish a relationship dynamic. So that way a relationship dynamic could be established. Therefore, the people would need the the oppressors, right? And so I think from this perspective, we can kind of understand a lot about this whole idea behind trauma and abuse, and not from the standpoint of not from the standpoint of looking at the person that caused or sought it, and more about the abstract idea or concept, the framework of why this abusive relationships even exist, right? And not just relational and romance, but also familial dynamics, workplace dynamics as well. But there's a purpose to it. That's the underlying theme. The purpose of abuse is to create lack and what awareness, meaning what somebody would perceive as someone to be sovereign or that who can stand on their own. So that purpose of abuse would be to instill that lack mindset onto the person who seems to not need anybody so that they can so it will undermine their own way of thinking that they don't need anyone into that they do need something or somebody. And this creates the dynamic, the relational dynamic of the run and chaser dynamic in like relationships. You'll hear all the time where there's someone who's constantly running or running away from a lover while the other person is chasing. This is pretty much the abstract or core theme whatever you want to call it, but it's the foundation, the base foundation of this dynamic. Now, if we want to look at the person who is perpetrating this part, then we can add on the fact that they are aware of their own lack. There's two ways to look at it, actually. Most people who who are the abusers, the people who are the abusers are either aware or they are unaware. But there's one of themselves, by the way. But there's one thing that they are completely aware of, which is this lack. They are aware that there is an imbalance, but they don't know if it's whether inside of them or it's through somebody else. And because of this, because of that, most of them externalize their lack and perceive it through something or somebody else. Now, I can't help but believe that somebody who already knows that they do lack and will seek abuse on somebody else just so that they can feel like their position is significant. Let me give you an example. A president would could seek abuse, or I guess I'll just say a world leader could seek abuse upon their people, creating lack mindsets and mentalities for their people, just so that the people can make them feel like they have this authority. They rely on the people's mindset, lack mentality, to create this authoritative, I don't know what to call it, like a dream. It's not real, because if you have to create and hurt somebody else in order to make yourself feel like you're in a position of power, that is totally false. Regardless of what you've created, it doesn't mean that you're actually in that power. It just is more like these people are playing a role so that you can feel like you are in this position of power or authority. And you can find these themes and concepts throughout almost every modality of life. Like that example for one, but for two, like I don't even like you can scale it down to the micro and just look at basic relationship dynamics. You'll find that in a lot of people's relationships, family as well. Some families, not all, but some. And so I don't believe that this theory is too far-fetched, but I believe that it's a good basic foundation or framework to begin to understand the purpose of abuse. And the reason why this is, I'm going to wrap this up here, but the reason why this is pretty important to understand it, not to, so you can understand the abuser's intention or why, even though that would basically pretty much narrow it down. But ultimately, it's so that you can see the entire, like from a bird's eye view, you can see the entire dynamic between why one would do something like this. And you wouldn't exactly internalize your abuse, meaning you wouldn't be blaming yourself. You wouldn't be questioning yourself anymore. This is kind of the whole purpose of why I'm even speaking about this, because many times people can get wrapped up in this victim mentality, which is them questioning themselves as to what they've done wrong or if there is something wrong with them, especially if this abuse had happened very early on in childhood before you even had the mind capacity to develop a thought or a sentence to even explain who you are, what you are, and things of that nature. So it's important not to internalize other people's behaviors when you realize the dynamic or purpose of it. That way, you're not caught in the dynamic, because the dynamic only works when you internalize it, when you believe that there's something wrong with you and that you're caught up in all of these different circumstances and events and whys and what happens. You become internalizing. You become the person, the hook latches onto you at that point. And now you are in a dynamic that you don't want to be in. You don't really know that you're in. But when you internalize it, you are in it. You are actively in it and you are participating in it. The more that you question yourself and question your own ability, and the more attention you put onto it. When you place your intention, your internalized chi, your energy on whatever happened to you, that's a relationship, that's a connection. There's a network right there. Similarly, if you externalize it, there's still a relational dynamic there. It's the same way that the abuser has sought this dynamic for or onto you. They externalized their lack to create the dynamic. So when you externalize it, meaning you give it attention, you start questioning why, who, what, when, where. You start questioning these people who've done it. Then again, you're still in a dynamic. So what can pull you out of it is this whole perspective shift of just realizing the basic foundation of why, or why abuse is, why abuse exists, the purpose of abuse, what I just spoke about. So you understand that framework, then you can begin to pull back the networks or connections that you've either internalized or externalized or both. I hope this makes sense.